What's up, guys? We are live. I got a special guest with me. I am Joe Zapata, and my friend right now is Rich Mancuso, who we used to watch as a child and listen to him on WFan. Him and Jody Mack, the Wrestling Hour. Rich, glad to have you come on.
Joe, thanks for having me this busy time of year.
It is a busy time of year, and I don't want to take too much of your time.
Well, it's a pleasure, to have me on. It's an honor. I love doing shows like this. We help each other.
We help each other.
Keep in the Ring on Thursday Night Live at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Right. So it's always good to help each other as we talk combat sports and everything else. You look so much like your brother. I thought it was him.
Yeah, I do look like George. People say that I do look like George. We have another brother who also does shows with us. We do a football show, and they say I look like him also.
Wow, all in the family, isn't it?
All in the family. We like to do this. So, Rich, what people don't realize is when we were young, the way we got our news was either a magazine or WFan sports radio, and it was either Mike Francesa, Chris Russo, but no one talked about wrestling. But at 3 a.m. on Saturday nights, you and Jody Mack did the Wrestling Hour. How did you get into that?
Well, as I tell everyone, it was just a fluke. It wasn't expected. I met Jody Mack. I originally started as an update guy on the Fan briefly with Steve Summers.
Oh, wow.
He would get into wrestling stuff with me, and he'd make a mimic of it until the fact that I just said, once I couldn't doing updates no more, and Steve got silly with it. I said, that's it, because I was a pure wrestling guy and I didn't want to hear that garbage. Mm-hmm. Wrestling at that time wasn't mainstream like it is now, But then I ran into Jody Mack at a local pub up in Westchester County, and he recognized the voice. I knew the name. I knew he was on a fan at the time. Mm-hmm. Big wrestling fan Jody was, and one thing led to another. We tried it out for an hour, and then he convinced the fan that we have to do this at 3 a.m. And the reason it was at 3 a.m. is because that was the time that he could put in for it. I sacrificed a lot of late nights on Saturday night for a few years into Sunday morning, but we did it. The reason we kept going and the fan was for it is because the fans, that was their outlet. They were getting the news. They wanted to hear the rumors, the gossip, which wrestling fans, mm-hmm. Joe, love. Yep. And the phone lines would light up even before I could get to the segment with Jody. When 1 hour, sometimes we'd go 2 hours. Yep. And the fan loved it because promoters of wrestling, independents, and even WWF at the time, and WCW, they knew that was a wrestling hour. And they knew they were getting the wrestling fans, so they would bring in advertising, sponsorship. Mm-hmm. And the fan loved that. And we kept going and going. And until Jody left the fan, that was it. I didn't capitalize it on enough mm-hmm. where I could go further with it. Mm-hmm. But if it had been this time era, mm-hmm. with everything going on, well, Rich Mancuso would be bigger than what I am now weight-wise. But, look, I had fun with it. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed interacting with the fans. A lot of the shows are chronicled on YouTube. If people want to go back and listen, they weren't around at that time. Yeah. And I also developed the Keep It in the Ring newsletter. And Keep It in the Ring started on that show with Jody Mack. It was RM and JM at 3 a.m. talking pro wrestling. That's how Keep It in the Ring started. It was very successful. If I turn the clock back, I'd do it all over again.
Wow. Now, I know a lot of the boys in wrestling, and did you, at that time, wrestling was very kayfabe, was still very alive. Did you get any heat from any of the wrestlers? Because when you were talking, you did tell sometimes or maybe a real name or something like that. Did you get any heat?
Good question. No, I didn't. I think the one guy took exception was Jim Ross. Yeah, because he was working, and didn't like that, and also Jim Cornette didn't like it.
Oh,
Jim
wow.
Jim Cornette, but I didn't hear. I would get a lot of very fans that were trying to get into the game at the time.
Yeah.
Very jealous, and to the point my phone number was being distributed at home. And that time I had moved back in my parents because my dad had fell ill. And I'm getting crank calls at 3, 4 in the morning.
Jesus.
which I thought was totally ridiculous. How they got my phone number, I don't know.
Hmm.
But it disturbed, and it was very disturbing to the point that I had to get something out there to knock it off and track these crank callers down. And to this day, I know who they are.
Hmm.
Some of them are no longer with us.
Oh wow.
And I'm not going to mention any names, but they were vicious. They were vicious
Yeah.
because they were jealous because they wanted to do what I was doing. And they weren't doing it. So they
Wow.
were disturbing me, but they disrupted my life, let alone that I had a sick dad with my mom. And, I mean, that wasn't right. But, that's part of this business. It's
Yeah.
it's a very cutthroat,
Yeah.
jealous type of business. And at that time, there was really no other forum to go.
No.
You didn't have the internet. The only way you can get the news out, if it wasn't in the newspaper with a little agate at the bottom, it was, talk radio if you had it. And the fan
Right.
gave me that opportunity and forum to do it.
Hmm.
And anyone who was jealous of it, anyone who took exception to it, well, you know what? I forgive them for how they felt because it led to bigger vehicles to get pro wrestling on the map.
Correct.
And fans want gossip.
Hmm.
Fans wanted the info, the rumors, Rumorville as we called it. And that's
Hmm.
what I was doing. I had
Yep.
my sources and I knew what was going on.
Hmm.
And unless I was legally being told to stop, I didn't. We kept going,
Yeah.
and the fan was concerned about that, but it never got back that there were any type of lawsuits or any litigation.
Okay.
Stop it.
Hmm.
If it had to, then we would, but it didn't, and we continued, and it was successful, and I enjoyed it.
Now, you being Italian American, you must have grown up Bruno Sammartino, your guy.
Oh yeah, he's the one that got me started in the
Really?
business.
Hmm.
Him and both of them, the late San Martino was my idol, and
Hmm.
Captain Lou Albano, who I eventually worked with some other ventures. I met them at again unexpectedly at an event, and I met Bruno was sitting in the same table somewhere, and then I said, I can't believe I'm sitting with my idol,
Yep.
and they were both amazed at how much I knew about pro wrestling.
Yep.
And as a pro wrestling fan since I was 5 years old, naturally I grew up in an era when pro wrestling was not where it is today. They
Hmm.
were amazed at the knowledge I had and what I knew about both of them. And Bruno was laughing at my stories about how I used to go to the Garden every month. My father would drag me because I would cry till I got there to see him on Monday nights at Madison Square Garden back in New York in the old day.
Hmm.
And how I told Bruno stories that I went after with friends later on, and to the point that I was in Madison Square Garden when he dropped the title to Ivan Koloff. And that time, I thought this was all real. You couldn't tell me it was nothing about kayfabe,
Nope.
anything about. I thought it was all real because I sat in the Garden that night when Bruno lost the title to Ivan Koloff, and nobody believed what happened. You could hear a pin drop. To this day, I'll never forget that. I told Bruno that story, and he was like amazed how I set the scene for him all over again. And we all know what happened. Bruno had broke his neck, had to take time off. But Cole, and that was his vicious rival, Ivan Koloff. To this day, one of the memorable moments in pro wrestling history. And I can tell you, I was there, and I'll never forget it.
Bruno was one of the nicest guys. I've talked to him a few times, and I wrote to him. And every time I wrote to him, he always wrote back to me with an autograph. He was one of
Yeah,
the
he was
nicest guys I've ever
good
met.
with that. Very good with that. And in fact, that he was Italian as well.
Yes.
From Abruzzi, Italy, which was real because a lot of wrestlers that are from parts unknown, other places where they're not from there. At that time, I didn't know that, but I knew Bruno was a pure Italian because he knew some friends of mine in the Bronx,
Wow.
Italian Americans. He knew that. So I knew he was a real Italian. And we would talk a little bit in my broken Italian, and he spoke fluent Italian. He did. But he was amazed at the knowledge and got a kick out of my broken Italian, which is an Italian American, and tomorrow's Columbus Day in New York, around the country, and I'm ashamed that I don't know my heritage and the language that comes with it better than what I do.
Wrestling today, do you miss the territory days?
I do because if you couldn't get into a WWF arena, Then you could go to these small time shows in the indie scene, as we called it, and the indie scene, which also opened the doors to many to get into this line of work in the career. And, you know, a lot of those guys that were on the indie scene then went on to bigger things, as you know,
Yep.
Joe.
Mhm.
I do miss it because it brought a competitiveness on a small level than what it is today, and what it was more with WWF, WCW, and the wars, the Monday Night Wars.
Mhm.
But, you know, you were up closer to the event, to the action as well.
Yes.
You didn't have the big set arena. You didn't have all the television lights. You know, so you had that more of a view, more to being up close, and more that we can interact with the talent. You can go backstage, which you can't
Yes.
do today,
Nope.
and you could get, you know, as a reporter too, you were able to get interviews that you can't get today.
Yep.
So yeah, it missed, and it's a shame we cannot have that like it was.
Yeah. Bobby Heenan once told me many years ago. He told me that the magic in today's wrestling is gone. Do you believe, you know, the wrestling from before to today totally different? You think the magic?
It's different. Well, to an extent, because it's different, Joe.
Yes.
Different because then it was pure pro wrestling. Today, it's a combination of wrestling and entertainment.
Mhm.
Need I have to say it and tell you or anyone what I'm talking about?
Correct.
Because when you watch Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, and even AEW, it's not just watching these tremendous athletes, and I call them athletes,
Mhm.
doing what they do. They risk themselves every time they make a move in the ring. Many of them get hurt, but it's more of an entertainment spectacle now because you have the TV and the money involved.
Yes.
All the bright lights, they're in the spotlight. So, you know, it's more entertainment, more storyline than it was.
Mhm.
Back then with Bruno Albano, Gorilla Monsoon, guys I grew up with, guys I got to work with eventually, it was just pure pro wrestling. And you would see a storyline unfold, but not like you see it unfold today. It didn't drag. You know what I miss, Joe?
What?
Back then, when you watch pro wrestling when I was a kid and even growing up before I got into the business the way I did, I miss those like vignettes, you know, those interviews leading up to a match. Like when you watch Bruno in the Garden, and even with Hogan,
Mhm.
Piper, but even way before that, you'd see Bruno would be Killer Khan coming after him, or would be even Ivan Koloff, that rivalry.
Yeah.
You'd see a long-standing interview once a week before the match in the Garden, because the Garden was the main place where everything happened at the time.
Yep. Mhm.
So you miss that. You miss those long-standing interviews. You got to really identify with the character even more.
Mhm.
You got to know that was a real person, even though it was pro wrestling character. Yeah, I miss that. They had that today, but not like that. Uh, it is a changed industry. We know that
Mhm.
because there's so much money in it, and it's got the exposure, you know, with the networks and the streaming networks and so forth, and now overseas. The fact, who would have envisioned major pro wrestling shows would be taking place overseas, Saudi Arabia, London, Australia, as WWE does. It's a tremendous thing to witness and to see how this evolved over the years, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it is not an industry to me that's dead. It keeps thriving.
Yeah, you're
It
right.
keeps thriving. It's just a different type of show that we see. To go
Mhm.
back to your question, Joe, it's entertainment more than wrestling. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. Was there any wrestler that you were surprised that when you met was a real jerk to you, and one that was really kind to you?
Yeah, Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah, he seems that way. Abdullah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The story I tell everyone is we're working. He wasn't with WWE. He was in independent. I was working independent scene.
Yeah.
And we had a show somewhere up in Massachusetts, and he gets in the car, and I meet him for the first time, and it's like I call him, "How are you doing, Abdul? Pleasure to meet you." Oh no, I call him by his real name, Larry Shreve, which is a no-no.
No.
You don't
Yeah.
do that.
Mhm.
But I figured, I'm working with these guys, and I can call him by your real name. Let's face it. So I
Mhm.
called, "How you doing, Larry?" And he like just growled at me. and got in that car, and I was so uncomfortable for a long ride from New York up to Massachusetts, a little town in Mass, an independent show. And he says to me, growling, "What did you call me?" "Larry, that's your name, isn't it?" "You call me Abdullah, and you don't call me nothing else." And you know what? I was intimidated. I felt so uncomfortable,
Yeah,
and I really didn't want to deal with him anymore. I just said, this guy, that's not way to meet a guy like me who's broadcasting your match.
you're
And we
correct.
were doing an independent show. I was either ring announcing or announcing the broadcast, but
Hmm.
he's the one that I would classify as jerk. All
Really?
right.
Okay.
Disrespect, because I know he's not well right now.
Yes. I've heard
But
those stories.
and he was a legend by all means, and
Hmm.
what he did in the business, but a real jerk. And
Yep.
and I will never forget that. All the others, I really can't say I have any complaints about. I love work, and in my career in sports, 43 years, all sports.
Hmm.
And wrestling to me, sports entertainment is still to me a sport in many ways. It's a known in combat sports industry. Joe, I got to tell you, they are the best, phenomenal people you want to meet. They're
Wow.
characters, they're funny, they're
Hmm.
entertaining with their stories, and they talk about life. And the stories that I love is the way they talk about their life and how they struggle to get to where they are.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I've heard so many stories from them over the years, how they struggle to get to the top. And that will amaze you. And then also more so, Joe, it inspires you.
Hmm.
And they have very inspiring stories to tell. And they are the greatest. And they just don't get the recognition because pro wrestling, to many, still is a farce, a
Yes.
joke.
Hmm.
But we know what it is, and we know how much money it is,
Yep.
and the talent that's involved just don't get the recognition. Not so much what they do off camera, and now what they do with their appearances and autographs and sessions, and they're all on TV shows now. That was never done before. It's they don't get recognized for what they do in that ring,
Right.
and how many times a week they might do it.
Yep.
Injury risk, everything that goes with it, being away from their families. They are incredible human beings.
Yes. I mean, the outcome is predetermined, but what they do in that ring, that really hurts. People
Yeah,
don't realize that.
that's
It
right.
really hurts.
That's right.
It really.
I see many guys get hurt, and how a referee had to stop the match because they get hurt,
Hmm.
and they do get battered and bruised. And
Hmm.
I've been backstage many times where they came in the back, and I can't believe the scars and bruises and the limping that they do and how they struggle to stand up again.
Yep.
But they got used to it; they're accustomed to it, and they
Hmm.
get used to get to healing fast. I
Hmm.
guess their bodies are made for it. I mean, I could never go through that, but they are amazing. That's why
Hmm.
they're incredible,
Hmm.
and I've seen a lot of injuries going on in that ring, a lot, and a lot that happened when they were out of the ring, and they just the after effect of it. So they got to
Yes.
get credit for what they do.
They do. They do. You had an amazing career, and you did boxing, wrestling, MLB. Which one of all the sports you do you is your go to, your favorite that you like?
Boxing.
Boxing. So while we're
Yeah.
on boxing, let's talk about change gears. That amazing fight that just happened, Beterbiev Bivol, that just
Mm.
happened. Great fight. Who do you think won and why? First and
I,
foremost,
I scored at a draw,
okay,
114, 114.
okay,
Coming into that fight Saturday night, we knew Bival and Beterbiev. This
hmm,
was going to be turning out to be anticipated. Most so, it could be a classic. And
yep,
basically, it was a great fight.
hmm,
Uh, what you had here was the technician of Bival and Beterbiev with the 100% knockout ratio coming in.
hmm,
And most of all, in the four belt area, you're unifying the light heavyweight title.
yep,
Okay. We hadn't seen that since 2002 with Roy Jones Jr.
hmm,
What's so disgusting about it is the scoring.
yeah,
And it should have been scored a draw. But one judge only gave Bival 4 rounds.
Yes, I saw that.
And impossible. How did he just score? And you know why? And on my program and in my when I write about the sport I love so much, I call these three judges at ringside three blind mice. And that fight epitomized three blind mice because you cannot give Bertaviv the win. Yes, it was a close fight, and there were a lot that thought Bertaviv won it and won it narrowly, 115, 112.
Bivol outboxed him. I thought Bivol outboxed him.
He might have outboxed him.
Correct.
But you've got this thing where judges are looking at punches.
Correct.
Punches landed. And if you look at the fight again, as I did today, you see, and images as well will show it. You see Bivol was not coming in on him as much as he should, which he does because technician. But you also see Bertaviv's punches weren't landing. They were hitting Bivol's glove. They weren't making contact to the body or anywhere else. Now, how judges determine, I know some of these boxing judges, and I've known them over the years. I've asked them, and I know it's a subjective sport. If you don't knock your opponent out, goes to those three blind mice, you don't know what you're going to get. And then the controversy with boxing is what kills it and kills a great fight like this. But I've asked judges, and they look at contact, and many of the old school judges that no longer judge that are around will say, we look for contact. We look for how many punches made connection. Well, I don't have the punch stats in front of me, but and I could pull them up. But when you look at the fight again, you'll see many, many times Bertaviv was hitting Bivol's glove, not his body. And that's probably what the judges saw.
Yep.
Okay. Back then, when we had boxing years ago, and when I first arrived on the scene, growing up as a fan and whatever, boxing championship fights went 15 rounds. 15 rounds could determine a championship better than 12. And if 15 rounds couldn't decide it, if somehow they went to a draw even before, they would go an extra round to decide it. Okay? Here's an example where that could have been done. However, one judge scoring at 116, 112, only four rounds to Bivol. Totally outrageous. And what happens there is the sport, amid controversy again, which it doesn't need, because you have a significant fight like this to unify the light heavyweight title that wasn't justified the way it came out. And it's atrocious. And I've always said that these judges have to be better. And the best way to make them better is to have former fighters judge fights at ringside. But that's never going to happen, because then you get the argument that they'll be partial to one fighter over another. I think that's total bullshit. The best judge at ringside is a former fighter. They've been in there. They've been screwed. They know. Okay? The referee at one time was a judge. The best judge at ringside, in the ring is the best judge, because the safety standards years ago, they changed all that and went to the three-judge format system. Look, a close fight like that, you're going to get controversy. But when it's 116, 112 from one judge, and a fight that could have won one round for Bivol or a draw, which seemed more reasonable, you got to wonder, come on. So you got to have a rematch. There needs to be a rematch. I'm sure they'll work it out. One of the head promoters of this fight, Eddie Hearn, very disgusted. I mean, even Frank Warren from Queensberry, co-promoter, disgusted. Bob Arum, Top Rank, of course, no, because as the Hall of Famer Bob Arum, who I respect so much, they had Bertaviv under their banner, so they're not going to complain about it. They're going to give you a totally different story. Look at the fight again. That's what I tell everyone. Be the judge for yourself. Dimitri Bivol either gets a one-round narrow decision, or this fight's a draw.
Excellent points, Rich. Excellent points. I thought the same thing you did. I want to respect your time because we got some things going on.
We can go on. It's the Mets tonight, and they lose. They lose. It doesn't matter. We can go on.
Yeah. the Mets are playing the Dodgers, by the way. We're going to go a little baseball. Who do you think wins that series?
I think the Dodgers are going to end this Mets run only because they have home field advantage, and I think that their offense in this series is going to click. Mets have to get out of LA with a split. That's obvious. If they go down 2-0, I still give them a chance. But because it goes, and if it goes 7 games, it goes to Los Angeles. But the Mets have proved time and time again during this run. I've seen enough of them covering them all season, and no one thought this team would even be where they are today. No. 11 games under 500 in mid-May, not doing a damn thing. No one gave them a fighting chance, but they turned it around, which is all credit to them because they have a good manager, rookie manager, Carlos Mendoza. But I don't see, and the Mets can't handle the Dodgers. And I saw that recently when they played them the last time in New York, when things kept going amok for the Mets. But I just see the Dodgers have a better lineup, and you got to shut down Ohtani, and that's the other thing.
Yes.
If you don't shut him down, and he's hit the Mets real well this year, Ohtani. Right. So, and you got Mookie Betts, you got Freeman if he's healthy, and so on. Their only suspect thing with the Dodgers is their pitching is banged up. But they're going to throw Yamamoto and Buehler, and, they still have a shot. But the Mets have to win the first. I don't think the Mets will win it. I think this will go a full 7 games, though. And if the Mets were somehow, they fooled me, they fooled everyone.
Yeah.
Cardiac kids with these late inning comebacks. If they get to their bullpen, you know what? They have a shot. So, but I still see the Dodgers winning it in 7. And I don't trust Edwin Diaz. As good as a closer he can be, he comes in as an adventure.
Yep.
If his slider doesn't work, goes to the fastball. If the fastball don't locate, home runs ahead. So I don't know.
Now, you a Yankee fan or a Met fan?
I'm a Met fan. Okay.
You're from the Bronx, though, right?
No, but I am not a Yankee hater.
Okay, that's good.
So I root for them as well. I cover them as well.
Yes.
And for years, I disliked the Yankees. But when you're in this business and you're a fan, you have to try and separate, don't you? But what happens is covering both teams, Joe, it's difficult. I get to like the Yankees an awful lot. Their players are tremendous to talk to. But the people in that organization are so classy. Okay? They are A+. And they make you feel welcome. They make you want to be there. And I root for them. And for that reason, I root for them. So these Met fans tell me, you got to like one or the other. And I know on Sports Radio 66 WFan, and I know there's a lot of right now in New York, it comes up again. You root for one or the other. That to me, you know what? I always had that, but I'm rooting for both of them. But as a longtime Met fan, yeah, I want to see them win. Okay? But I also will not say, you know what, Yankees suck and they don't deserve it. I'm not like that. I'm rooting for them as well. And either way, if the Mets don't make it to the World Series, the Yankees do, or vice versa. The buzz is a Subway World Series. That's very possible. I covered the first one I did in 2000. Was hectic, loud, and a whole bit the city. It was all about Mets and Yankees 24 years ago. There's a good chance it could happen again. But again, I think the Dodgers are going to beat the Mets in 7.
I'm a big Yankees fan. Been following them a long time. I think they're going to beat the Guardians in 6. What do you think?
That's going to be a tough series. That's tough.
Yeah.
Aaron Boone came out and said yesterday that Jose Ramirez is better than what people think. And you have to watch him. And he does hit the Yankees well. He's just having a very slow postseason. Yep. Why did the Guardians have a chance? We know. Their starting pitching can take you 5 innings, but that bullpen, the best in baseball, will take over. And that's why they have a good chance. They do not hit home runs, not many, but they make contact. They get on base. They know how to move runners over, which is a sign of a good team and where they are. But when you get to their bullpen, very difficult. And that's why they have a chance to knock the Yankees off. Yes, the Yankees are the better team. Home field advantage. Best record in the American League. but the Guardians won that American League Central. They did it. It wasn't because it was given to them. They're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They're a good team. They play in a market that's not really strong enough for them to be known, as this team. But look, they won close to 90 ball games. They won the American League Central. And that bullpen, best in baseball and best I've seen in a very long time. So I give them a chance.
Okay.
I think that series also goes 7 games.
Okay.
Yankee Stadium will be electric. They have the home field. The Astros are out of the way. No excuses. So the Yankees are expected to win. And I think the Yankees will win. Though the bullpen for the Guardians could be the key.
Wow. Now, how do you feel about football, Jets, Giants? What about the Jets?
I think both teams are in this stage of when. I'm not a fan of either one. I very rarely cover football, but yeah, I like everyone else. I follow it. I haven't covered an NFL game in a long time. I might this year get one. But I think both teams are in this stage right now. You got to win. And the Giants are not going to win. Daniel Jones has looked so much better. Neighbors is out with the injury that hurts them at the wide receiver position. But their defense looks a little better. Daniel Jones looks a little better, but I don't think they're going anywhere. Maybe 7 wins the most. The Jets, the coaching change, I don't know why they would do it right now. Yeah, and that's a team that's always in turmoil. They never can get their act together. And people primed them to be in the Super Bowl this year. I don't see how that's possible. Mm-hmm. I don't see how that be possible. That they're good enough to win their division, maybe, because the Patriots are no longer involved. The Dolphins may be struggling without their quarterback. You know what? I don't know if they'll win the division wild card year, but I don't see the Jets. They'll go in the play. I could see them making the playoffs, but we got to see how their offense pans out because Salah's gone. I don't understand that. Yep. I don't. There's something there with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers, despite everything, had something to do with that. I really do.
Yep, I believe so too. And we're here with Rich Mancuso and Keep It in the Ring podcast on YouTube on Thursdays, correct?
Thursdays? Yeah, it's strictly Keep It in the Ring on Thursday Night Live at 8 p.m. It's on my YouTube channel, so I want people to like, comment, and of course subscribe.
Yep, and I'm going to leave everything in the comments below, where to go.
And we're on with Stream Punk Entertainment, my Keep It in the Ring page on Facebook. So I encourage people to watch, and we do an hour and we analyze, and I do it a little different than others. I analyze and I go into the fights a bit and analyze some of the outcomes, try and get guests on. That's always difficult to do. But after the boxing, we do the little UFC stuff, MMA, and then a lot of it's pro wrestling. Go recap what's going on there. I try and do the best I can. It's picking up some steam and popularity, and we do Keep It in the Ring. That's why we call it Keep It in the Ring.
Let me ask you about AEW. What do you think about that, the roster and how they are?
I think they have too many guys on the roster. Yeah. They seem to be doing well with the new deal with Warner Discovery. Rampage, I think, is going to go off, but nobody watches Rampage. It's horrible. The ratings have been abysmal. I think Tony Khan's got a great thing there. They'll never exceed WWE standards. They'll never do that. But they're still going strong. They got the new deal with Warner Discovery, which is a sign that they're healthy. Tony Khan puts his life into it. They do have a roster of mega talent, guys we know, guys that we don't know as well. I like the fact that they've expanded their shows, that they do more. The pay-per-views, they're doing even more of that. I would like to see them have a streaming network, just like WWE does. The thing I don't like about them, their pay-per-views are much too long. Yes. And there's got to be a reason for that. You can't expect fans to be sitting down, as much as some do like it from the reaction I get. But I myself, as old school as I am, cannot sit and watch a wrestling show for 5 hours. No. I can't do that. It's just much too long, Joe, much too long. But they're doing that for a reason, because they want to get as much storyline that they do and as much guys to work to get them the pay-per-view revenue that I'm sure is a part of their contracts. They have to cut that down. The matches, some of them are too long. Years ago, old school. We watched wrestling matches. Main events would go close to an hour. I saw Bruno Sammartino wrestling in the Garden for an hour without TV.
Yep.
And that continued. And you don't see that in WWE as much.
Mm-hmm.
But their matches on pay-per-view are much too long. The fact that they have 5 hours of programming, much too long. And another thing I don't like about them, as much as fans love brutality, I don't. And I've heard a lot of old school and a lot of new school fans, the younger, that just can't watch some of the things that they've been doing on this Wrestle Dream. Again, Bryan Danielson supposedly retirement, that to be his last match with Moxley.
For Moxley.
That was brutal again, what happened at the end. And trying to suffocate him with the pledge, and then the chair, putting him under the chair where he gets severely injured. And by the way, Tony Khan didn't do his scrum. Tony Schiavone did afterwards. And many people don't realize it. You know what? That fit in perfectly with the storyline that he had accompanied Danielson to a local hospital. Tony Khan, right after the show, took the headsets off, said goodbye, got on his private jet, went to London because the Jaguars were in London this morning. And that's where he went. He went to London to see his Jaguars, to be there with them, because he never misses a game. That's what that was all about. Because everyone's asking me, where was Tony Khan during the scrum? That's where he was. He flew to London. But brutal, too brutal. At times, I can't watch that. I mean, blood, bleeding, blading has always been a part of pro wrestling. Bruno Sammartino in the old school, in that era, they used to blade a lot. And Vince McMahon cut it out a bit. And now AEW is known for that. And, the maneuvers they do, credit to those guys. When I talked to Darby Allin about a few weeks ago before their pay-per-view that which one was it they had? That was Grand Slam coming in New York at Arthur Ashe. I talked to him and I asked him about that. Do you think it's too brutal? He said, it can be, but this is what the fans like. When it comes to think of it, that's what they do like. Pro wrestling fans love that. They love tables, lattice chairs.
ECW days.
Yeah, it's in the old ECW, which brought this out in them. And which I really didn't. I didn't like that as much either. Once in a while, but all the time, it's just too brutal. I just feel that AEW is going in the wrong direction with that. Though they feel no. I don't know what their pay-per-view numbers have been. I've got to find that out. But I watched that last night again with Danielson, and if he's going to retire, if that was his last match, they shouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah, you're right. Do you think Tony Khan could be like Vince McMahon?
Not in that magnitude, in that high magnitude. No. He's got the money to do it.
Does he have the brain?
He doesn't have the brain. No. Remember, he came into this as a fan.
Correct.
Okay, McMahon came into it as a fan out of a family of it.
Yes.
From his father. Grew up with it. So no, he'll never be Vince McMahon. Will he rival WWE? They've tried. It doesn't work. No. They can't. They're on at a different time. A few times they've clashed on the same night because of network responsibilities, and they kind of have it on a different time where it would be with NXT or even with a SmackDown or whatever. I know. No. They have the money to do it, but they're doing it differently. And they don't have the creative mind of now that they have. They don't have the right storytellers. They don't do it the right way. They don't have the mastermind like Triple H.
Yeah, Triple
H.
Like
Paul Levesque. He's a master. He's revived with something that seemed to be dying a little bit.
Correct.
He's just good at what he does.
Yeah.
Tony Khan has, but doesn't have that. It may never do. Has the money to do it, but he also might have some restrictions of what he can do with his media rights deal compared to what WWE did. Hell, WWE going to Netflix, that's going to be wild.
Going to be big.
I like the fact, Joe, too, that they got Raw down to 2 hours. I like that.
Excellent.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Excellent point. I follow both AEW and WWE. and doing what I do, podcasting, I know a lot of the boys, a lot of the old school guys, Tito Santana's and Sergeant Slaughter, and they're friendly. AEW seemed I'm able to have access to those wrestlers a lot easier than with WWE. Why is that? Is Tony Khan lets the fans talk to them more? I don't know. Just a lot of access is easier.
What it is now, Joe, is it's more like what the wrestlers want to do.
Okay.
Okay. Access to get interviews now because it's so mainstream now.
Yep.
Coming from a reporter's perspective, from a journalist's perspective,
yep.
You have big companies running the show. Mm-hmm. And when you get to that point, the talent's being told what to do, who to talk to, and when to be talked to.
Okay.
And to get access to these guys, just like I have to do with AEW, which is they're more accommodable to doing it than WWE. Yes. You have to go through their public relations people. They have publicity people running the show. Okay. And that's how I do with AEW. I go through their publicity department, and they're very, very helpful. They're more than happy to do it, to arrange a phone interview. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I have to say that was never done before, which is great, if you get media access to these pay-per-view events and you could go into the scrums after the shows. Mm-hmm. That never happened before. And there's your ability. You may not want the wrestler you want to talk to, but you know how it goes. They bring them out in a press conference situation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and they go out of character. Some of them stay in character or vice versa. And that was never available. And I think that's fantastic. I like that idea. Mm-hmm. And again, that's all because their media relations people arrange these things.
Correct.
And I think it's fantastic. Years ago, you didn't have that access.
No.
I mean, if you could get backstage, you were lucky years ago. I was one of them. Today, you can't get nowhere to the backstage area.
No.
And so if you get an opportunity to go to a media post scrum after a pay-per-view event, not a SmackDown or a Raw event or a regular AEW TV event if you go with the limited house shows they do. Mm-hmm. But you go to a pay-per-view event, WWE, AEW, and you can go to their post-media scrum event. That's very, and you'll get credentialed. You're lucky to get credentialed to do that. Then there you go. Yeah. And that's big. That's big. And they do that because they know they have to do that. Mm-hmm. Because there are so many YouTubers and so many, no more what you call sheet writers. The only one still doing that is Dave Meltzer, and you get him online as well. But you have so many podcasts. And the internet has changed the whole world, as you know.
Yep.
And in this business, it's changed it tremendously.
Correct. Every day. Have you ever met Vince Sr. by any chance?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Not too many people can say that.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I worked for the company a little bit for a brief time. Had a few encounters with him that I'm not going to go into.
Okay.
But yeah.
Was he a nice guy?
No.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I really don't. I really don't want to comment.
Okay.
More than that, there were a lot of things I saw that, and I don't want to get into it.
Okay, that's fine.
But a guy that very devious, and I've had a lot of his ex-talent, a lot of the ex-talent there that left that haven't said one good thing about him except he gave me opportunity.
Yep.
That's the only good thing you could say. Mm-hmm. The man opened the doors. He was a mastermind, creative, had the money to do it from nothing to something, and was able to open up the pro wrestling business again.
Yep.
It gave a lot of guys opportunity, whether they like him or not. You can't fault them for that. Put wrestling back on the map. Can't fault them for that. Business-wide, very shrewd, very devious, and what could I say? Dangerous? No, I don't say dangerous. The competitiveness in him, his competitive desire to always be on top. And let's face it, He got them to the top and kept them at the top. And what's a shame about to go further with him, what's sad about the whole thing that he's no longer around, and because of what's happened and everything that came out, what's sad about it is this is a legacy that's been ruined.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, and hopefully this will change because I'd love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
He might even be put in his own Hall of Fame that he started. And his legacy, and Joe, his legacy, the legacy that he created because of this may never be remembered.
Wow.
We're talking pro wrestling all the time. We're watching pro wrestling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Promoters on the indie scene that are left that still do this on a regular basis are doing this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're watching WWE, AEW, and whatever else all the time. And the reason we're doing that is because of the name Vince McMahon. That's why.
Mm-hmm. And when you speak of legacy, sports, winning journalists like yourself, it's an honor to speak to you. And, you are the voice of our childhood. And
I appreciate that. I get that a lot, Joe.
Yeah.
And I get that a lot. I can't believe to this day how many people call me a legend, which I'm not.
You are.
I am not. There are many others in this business that could be called a legend, not me.
Yes.
I created something.
You did.
I devoted my life to what I do. My social life is a mess because of this. And that's why I have to step aside soon.
Yeah.
I've lost a lot of friends over the years, passed away, made a lot of enemies. Not my doing, because I'm the nicest as can be till you piss me off.
Everyone.
Okay. And I've had some great friends come out of this industry. But people still remember 3 a.m. on WFan, JM and RM.
That's it.
And I owe it to Jody McDonald.
Yep.
Because if it weren't for Jody, I wouldn't have never done that. And to this day, people still talk and buzz about it. Yep. And when I run into fans on social media, you the Rich Mancuso, I say the same thing you did, Joe.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have known what was going on.
No, we did not know.
When I hear that, I smile. It makes my day, makes my night. And I just love it because I was able to do what I was supposed to do.
Yep.
For a guy like you and many others to be informed.
Yep.
And that's what this medium is all about.
Correct.
To inform.
Yep.
Okay? Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that in an industry that's usually very quiet.
Yep.
Okay? And I enjoyed doing it. And like I said, if I could turn the clock back, I listen to those old audios. They're on YouTube. If anyone wants to listen. I'm amazed at times with what I said and how I did it because it's 3 a.m. I stayed up.
Yeah, you did. Well, I hope you're in New York. I'm in Jersey, so maybe we can get together for I'll take you out to dinner or get.
You don't have to take me out to dinner, but we could meet. We could sit down and
sit down.
You don't have to do that. I appreciate opportunity being on with you and also with your brother. And we could meet somewhere. And look, if you come to the Bronx, I got to take you to the best Italian restaurant I know.
Yes, I think I saw you did a YouTube video about it, right on the corner there, right?
Right. Yeah. There are videos I've done with some YouTube creators that are very successful.
Yes.
Doing tours of my old neighborhood.
Yes, I saw that.
The Bronx. People knock the Bronx, but I'm still here.
Yes. Well, when you're not too busy.
I may not be. I may not be in the Bronx tonight. I mean, I'm still a Bronx guy, though. You know?
Exactly. Well, your voice.
But people know how to find me. People know how to find me. You can email me, or you can get me on Twitter, X as it is, Ring786, and Facebook.com with Rich Mancuso.
YouTube channel. Where can
the YouTube channel is Keep It in the Ring.
Yep.
You go to Rich Mancuso Thursday night, 8 p.m. live, and I'm there. I'm there from 8 to 9. And I enjoy doing it because I'm doing what I'm doing with you now. I'm informing. I enjoy it. And you give opinion, too.
Yeah.
What other better way to do what you got to do to give your opinion and to vent off when you have to? And believe me, This Thursday night. Now, I don't know if we're going to be live because if I have a ball game to do, I can't be there.
Okay.
But the show will be on. But I am going to vent about the Beterbiev Bival fight.
All right.
And I'm going to vent about these judges, 3 blind mice that screwed up and made it look bad for the sport. That's what hurts. It damages the sport, Joe.
Yep.
You can't do that. I'm a boxing guy. I love the sport. I have a passion for it.
Yep.
Okay? And when you screw that up like that, it just makes everything. But you hear from people, I've heard them all day today. I'll never watch another fight again. Screw it. Cursing, whatever. You can't have that when you want to make the sport grow more. And boxing's not dead. It's thriving.
No.
There's a lot of money in it. But when the fight like that happens and you get a decision like that, it takes away everything.
It does.
It's unfair. It's an injustice.
You're absolutely
3 blind mice at ringside will do that to ruin the sport.
Yep. So watch this Thursday. Rich Mancuso will be talking about the 3 blind mice on Keep It in the Ring on YouTube. That he's a legendary, iconic sports journalist. I am honored to talk to him. You know, I'm going to see him again. Rich, I love you, brother. Take care. Be good. See you Thursday.
Let's go Mets. Let's go Yankees.
You got it. Talk to you
Keep
later.
it in the ring, Joe. Thank you very much. I'm honored.
Thank you so much.